Hi everyone, welcome back to Bulletproof Runner. We cover Achilles tendinopathy and how this impacts a runner and what we can do to overcome it. My goal here is to spread some awareness, especially of the new research that's been coming out showing that traditional treatments like rest, ice, and stretching just don't work. One of the things I see a lot about Achilles tendinopathy is a lot of runners ask me, I think my footwear caused this, or my shoes caused this. And I want to go over shoes a little bit and hit on some of the finer points about footwear that I think you as a runner should know. The first rule that I tell people is that if the shoe feels comfortable to you, like you don't have any hot spots inside the shoe, if the heel counter is not rubbing on your Achilles, if you feel like your toes got room to wiggle, then you're wearing a comfortable shoe that works for you. Which is why I don't personally recommend a particular brand, because each brand has different shoes that they sell that do different things for different people. 60 million runners in the United States alone and much more worldwide. So that's a lot of people to make shoes for. That's the first thing, is that you want to be as comfortable as you can in those shoes. The second thing to consider, a lot of people say, well, if you have Achilles tendinopathy, should I go with a higher heel to toe drop? Generally the answer is yes, but there's always a but. The but is you don't want to decondition the Achilles tendon while you're in that elevated heel lift stage. You want to make sure that you're still putting strength and load through the Achilles, okay? So heel to toe drop, right, and aim for that middle spot of 8 millimeter heel to toe drop. That gives you the best balance between what you need in order to feel springy to support your Achilles without deconditioning the Achilles too much. Now, I've had other people say, well, if I go to zero drop shoe, that's more natural, right? And therefore it might be better for the Achilles. I would say it's not good for your Achilles. If you don't have Achilles pain, you can try going into more of a natural or barefoot running style. If you're used to it, an 8 millimeter drop, you just gotta ease back into that zero drop. And that takes time. It takes planning, and you might have to wear multiple pairs of shoes to get there. But if you have Achilles pain, that zero drop could exacerbate it, especially if you have insertional pain. The reason being is in a heel to toe drop, the heels be higher than your toes. And when that happens, your Achilles back here shortens, okay? When you shorten that Achilles, it reduces the strain on it, right? It reduces its workload. If you go into a zero drop, so let's say if you're a zero drop, and let's say I towards the flex the foot a little bit, then you can see my Achilles has gotten longer, and that can irritate the tendon, especially if you have pain right in the heel bone. That's an important factor to consider. If you have Achilles pain, you're trying to train through it, consider a heel to toe drop of 8 millimeters, or insert a heel lift if you don't want to buy new shoes. The other thing is cushioning, and there's another misconception that people have is that, okay, should I go to mass cushioning for Achilles pain? And the answer is no. There is such a thing as too little cushioning and too much cushioning. So you gotta find that right balance. And personally, I've had foot pain that has radiated to the Achilles, and I'm wearing the On Cloud Swift shoes. And those shoes don't have great rear foot stability. And so I've noticed that, I injured that ankle to high school playing lacrosse. So it's got pretty restricted mobility, and I try to keep it loose and open as much as I can. But if I don't have that rear foot stability, what can happen is, because it's so stiff, you're just pounding that Achilles, right? And so that's one of the things you have to think about. Like, okay, I'm wearing the On shoes, but that cushion doesn't work for me, right? It's painful. So I've switched to a pair of Sauconys, and I seem to have kind of like a mid-cushioning level with better rear foot stability, and that seems better for me. So that this is really individual decision that you have to make and think about these things. That, okay, how does my foot react to the ground? Do I need that sprinting feeling? Because what happens when you have too much cushioning, there's a delay between when you hit the ground and then when you sprint off the ground. If you reduce the cushioning, then you can feel sprintier. You can actually pick up your feet a little bit faster, and that might be better both for your Achilles and your performance. So that's something you need to think about. So that's why I don't recommend mass cushioning, because you're actually creating more ground reaction forces. Achilles is essentially pushing down the cushion for longer, and that's going to put more load on the Achilles. Alright? The next thing I want to touch on is orthotics and insert. If you have flat feet, which is an overpronation of the foot, it happens one or two ways. Your arch should collapse. So your arch can collapse down here. So the first way, for whatever reason, it could be increased tissue elasticity. It could be you have poor motor control. There's lots of different reasons, but when your foot rotates in, that's a medial longitudinal arch collapse. Right? You could also have a real foot pronation that's causing a whole ankle joint pronating inwards. That can cause a flat feet mechanism. And this is where orthotics can come in play and help support that. The problem, again, is a lot of people have flat feet. A lot of people who have flat feet also run, and many of them don't have pain. So you can't always say, yep, flat feet causes Achilles pain. Otherwise, you would see it in the majority of people. That's not the case. I don't see it in the majority of people. So you have to think about, okay, what does flat feet mean in the big picture? There's lots of different reasons why flat feet can potentially cause Achilles pain. Orthotics can help with flat feet, but it might not. See if it helps reduce pain after activity or reduce pain in the mornings, but you still want to load the tendon. That you gotta fix that root cause of the problem. That's number one, is fix the loading problem. Achilles tendinopathy is a loading and capacity and tolerance problem. You can't tolerate the things you want to do. I know a lot of it is more on the Goldilocks phase. A lot of the advice is not like, oh, you should get this one particular shoe. That's not fair to you, not fair to the unique differences that I see among all kinds of people with Achilles tendinopathy. So it's really important that you consider your unique situation and buy the shoes that are right for you. The people that you can talk to are people who run shoe stores or running stores. These people are great. They know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. You can talk to physical therapists. You can talk to athletic trainers. You can talk to biomechanics or people who do running analysis, or even running coaches are really knowledgeable on this topic. So there's a wide range of people you can talk to about this. If you like this content, you head to the subscription below and click on the Runner's Achilles Playbook. It's just $1. It's my book on everything you need to know. Much more than just shoes, right? I talk about why it happened, what the best treatment plans are, and so on and so forth, and how you can run even if you have Achilles tendinopathy. Just check it out. It's just $1 today. Leave a comment below, okay? I want to hear from you. What shoe works for you, and what are your favorite pair of shoes? And I also want to know, how many pairs of shoes do you really have? There you have it. Shoes for Achilles tendinopathy. I'm Grady Congleton of Bulletproof Runner, and I'll see you next time.